I had just been promoted to VP, had all the amazing benefits, and here I've got 2 young children to support and with everything that comes with that. But I was like, I can't be all things to all people, and I'm gonna figure this out. And it's so crazy that like the universe kind of shows up for you if you believe enough in yourself.
Hi, my name is Zenka Caro, and I'm founder of LightNet. And my passion and purpose is expanding what we believe is possible. Today, we're focused on Amanda Haas. She is a famous cookbook author with very humble beginnings. She started out after college, and her parents couldn't believe she took a simple retail job at Williams Sonoma. And they thought, wow, we spent all this money on college, and this is what you're doing. But she said that it was the perfect place to start. And in that, it unfolded into her dream job. She became manager of the test kitchen at Williams Sonoma and later the director of Culinary. So big dreams come true. And then she said, I'm going to quit all this, leave my fancy job and return home to spend more time with my kids and branch out on her own. And she had some struggles with that, but she said her latest cookbook is her favorite cookbook, and it just keeps getting better. So she's always listened to her gut. Does it have to do with food? Does this feel good and feel right? And she lands on her feet. Amanda, what is your purpose and passion?
Feeding people. I want to say cooking, but it's really feeding others. It's funny when you think about things that just bring you so much joy, and I always loved to eat. I mean, from the time I could talk, I was always talking about food, but it was interesting that I just took to cooking. And in high school and college, I really took to cooking. And then I realized that no matter who you're cooking for, they appreciate it and you can show love through it. And so whether it was somebody that I knew or, a member of my family or someone in the community, it just became this thing that gave me such a good feeling. And even now, like whether I'm cooking for my kids and it's a 5-minute situation, or I go volunteer and I cook for kids doing something around a charity organization, like it is in my heart and soul. It's just the thing that lights me up. Well, I think the most interesting thing is that I started in a job that everybody thought I was crazy to take because it didn't pay anything, and I always had this connection to food, and I wanted to move to San Francisco. And I lived in Arizona, and I just kept telling my family, I'm moving to San Francisco. And a week before college graduation, Williams Sonoma came to campus and interviewed, and they said, yeah, if we hire you, it'll be for a training program for like no money, and you'll start in our retail stores. And I was like, I don't care, it's gonna get me to San Francisco. So they called, but like no cell phones. A week later, I get a phone call saying, come to San Francisco. My parents were like, what are you doing? You're going to work in a retail store? But it turned out to be the most amazing training. I learned about all of the products. I learned how to like choose knives and cookware. I'm laughing because I talk to people about these things all the time now, and I represent so many of those brands, but it reinforced my desire to cook for a living too. I was talking about these things and was so passionate with customers about it. So it really actually was phenomenal training. And from a business standpoint too, I was running a $2.5 million store at age 22, and it was fantastic. So that thing that everybody thought was a bad idea for me was actually the best place to start. And everything I did from there, like every time I said yes to something, I just kept saying, is it around food? Does it feel like the right decision for me? And every single step I took has helped lead to where I am today. When I started in the stores, my parents were like, we're confused because you don't have to have a degree to do what you're doing. But I was like, I just want to learn how to run this business. But then I was able to transfer over to their corporate office and do store openings. So that was when they were opening like 30 stores a year. So I was the project manager from the corporate side for that. So I learned a ton with that. And then my job was taking me farther away from it as I moved up the ranks, but I decided I wanted to go to cooking school. So I walked away after 7 years and went to cooking school for 6 months. And then just by saying, every time I said yes, my I was asked to do for my externship, just test recipes for a cookbook for the owner of the cooking school. And it was 200 recipes in 6 weeks. It was just completely insane. But that led to her calling someone, Marion Cunningham, who was a really well-known food writer and cook. And she gave me a job on her last cookbook. And then it was just like word of mouth and word of mouth. So then I started testing recipes for books. And then that led to working with a chef and writing his book. And then the publishers, he gave me so much credit and said she did all the work. I got my first cookbook contract. And so it's so funny. Everything just kept going. And then after 10 years of this freelancing, Williams Sonoma kept hiring me freelance to do like cooking videos for them or work on their cookbooks. And then I went back there to become their full-time culinary director, and we built a new test kitchen, and it was amazing. So when I walked back in that building 10 years after I'd left, I was like, oh my gosh, every choice I've made has led me back to this incredible job. So I've gone on now to start my own business, and because writing cookbooks and having a family and commuting and doing everything as the culinary director was, is really too much to manage. But that opportunity gave me the opportunity now to work with brands on my own that I'd worked with through Williams Sonoma, or discover and other ones, or people who saw my videos will, cold call me and say, hey, do you want to work together? So it's amazing to me that it never felt calculated, right? I just kept saying yes to the things that felt right to me, truly on a gut level. I think that it's super scary to have the courage to always follow it. And, I hit a couple times where I was making really decent money, great benefits and things like that, but it no longer felt like the right thing to do. So even when it was like I was going to quit to go to cooking school, I'd just been promoted, and everyone was like, this is amazing. But to kind of return to that, but this isn't part of what I really want to do, or didn't feel like it was really calling to me as I was moving up the ranks. So I think the biggest challenges have been just knowing when you have to trust your gut. And even when I left Williams Sonoma, people thought I was crazy because I had just been promoted to VP, had all the amazing benefits, and here I've got 2 young children to support, and with everything that comes with that. But I was like, I can't be all things to all people, and I'm going to figure this out. And it's so crazy that like the universe kind of shows up for you if you believe enough in yourself. And I think that's the thing. I've never had like a big ego around what I do, but I do believe we all show up as ourselves, and no one is like me, no one is like you, no one can do it exactly like I do. So I don't really worry about competition in what I do, right? So I was like, I have another friend named Amanda, and she's in cooking and she's amazing, but people thought we were hilarious because she worked for me in the test kitchen. I'm like, she's not my competition. She does it her way, I do it mine. And so I've always been able to understand that I'm not competing against anybody except myself. And that's really helped give me the courage to be like, if somebody's hiring me, it's because they want me, right? And whatever that is. A couple times when I decided to go out on my own, and you think you're on a good path financially, and then work just falls away. Like the pandemic for me was insane. It's just, I went from probably having 3 big clients that paid really great money for what I do, to just like, oh my God, we don't have a marketing budget anymore. Or, I was teaching a ton of classes for a few companies, and they're like, we can't travel, we can't bring you here. So they were able to pivot some, but I had to just get scrappy. And I just had to say, there's got to be a way. And so it's funny, I'm like, I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse that when the going gets tough, I'm like, I'm just gonna figure it out. So I really could I always say, people are like, you're crazy. I'm like, I'll write another cookbook. Like cookbooks don't pay the bills forever, but it's like a nice chunk of money to get you through a period. And so I just make it so, right? So I've like found a way to be like, then I'll do a book project, or I launched this online cooking school during the pandemic because I was like, well, people still want to learn how to cook. We can't do it here, we can't do it there. So what if we do it this way? And it totally came through for me when I needed it, and we all got something out of it, So I struggle when sometimes you're like, whoa, what have I done? It's scary to not have that safe job. But if you can kind of stay out of the panic and like the fear mode, things usually work out okay. I forget that the thing I probably enjoy the most about it is how you can affect other people through it. And so I always try to tell people when I'm teaching, like, we're just cooking, right? We're not saving lives or not doing anything. But at the same time, when you either bring somebody a meal, you serve someone a meal, or you teach someone how to cook, it is just such a joyful thing. Like, everybody loves food and to talk about food or to be given that gift, right? So I get so much satisfaction out of people finding joy in what I do. And the fact that I just totally love doing it, whether I'm by myself in my kitchen, like I cook by myself all the time, in silence usually. I'm just in my own little world. Or when I go out and I'm more public facing and I do it, I just get so much from, I know it's my purpose because I just light up when other people light up from it, right? People appreciate it so much, so much. I have a son who's 20 and a son who's 17, and they laugh at me because they're like, Mom, you sound like a broken record. But I feel like if I had just followed what I wanted to do from the beginning, I would have just probably landed in this sooner, right? Like I kept trying to think like, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to have this certain career. And I'm always saying, if you are locked into something that lights you up at a young age, pursue it. Try it. And the whole idea of the money will follow, I really do believe that. And I think if you feel like you wake up every day with purpose, you're going to figure out how to make a living. So my kids just laugh so hard. They're like, we know you want us to follow our hearts. But I think there's something to be said for it. And to not be afraid to try something that maybe isn't so mainstream, right? Like if you really love to, my friend's son, I remember, he could draw from the time he was this big, and it was a family who's always sports oriented and doing all these things. He's an architect now, right? But like from this big, he was dialed into what he loved. And so I'm always trying to tell my kids, first of all, you don't have to have it figured out at 20 or whatever age you're supposed to be, and try some things. And it might take a while. And you know what? It's okay to change your mind too. It's okay to pursue something and be like, I love this. My career's taken me like that, and I think it's my personality to change anyhow. That's just how I am, right? So I felt a lot of pressure at that age to have it all figured out at 22 out of college, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I think the best part about growing older is that growing older is that I'm more locked into it. Like I know it's there. And when I steer away from it, when I get away from it, my body tells me immediately, like, you are not on track anymore. So it's like I can make decisions based on my gut around this. And anytime I'm like, what's really making me happy? It always comes back to this. It comes back to kind of serving others in this way. And anytime I do something just because someone's like, oh, it's going to, pay really well, and I'm like, oh, that'll remove some burden there. It's like, I know. And so the more you listen to yourself, the easier it becomes to stay in it. So my latest book, which I don't know if you've seen yet, is called Homemade Simple. And what's the subtitle? Effortless Dishes for a Busy Life. The thing I love about this is the perfect example of just staying true to who you are, because the last two books I wrote were like very forward in the wellness space of being anti-inflammatory cooking and kind of like screaming that from the rooftops. But this is how I cook every day of my life for my family. And I was like, this is the book I was always meant to write. And it was the easiest book to write as well. The recipes just kind of fell out of me because it's just life on a daily basis. So I have a feeling this book will be the most successful too, because it's so true to who I am.